Hi, Cindy. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Certainly. Thank you so much, Lorraine. Thank you for the invitation. So, I am Cyndi Thomsen, and I am the founder and CEO of Creating a Passionate Life. I help women, artists, and leaders who find themselves struggling with finding their voice in their story. I help to unfold what that might be that's hiding behind this wall that we put up sometimes and share who they really are by reclaiming their voice, reigniting a vision that may be long lost or deep down inside, and realigning with what matters most to you in your life. Hence, creating a passionate life. I help people create the life that they are passionate about living.
Excellent. And certainly speaking your truth is part of that. And Cindy, what's the moment of when a one realizes something's true and it's kind of rising up? How do you help her honor that?
Yeah, so it can be a little different for each person, but traditionally, what I have found is that someone crosses my path that has been doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this and that, and find themselves not centered, not focused, kind of fumbling. I used to teach swim lessons and I used to be a swimmer, and it's kind of like we're struggling to find the surface of the water. And usually how I start with someone when I that person crosses my path is I have them roll on their back and float. In essence, recalibrate where they are rather than bobbing in the water and struggling and fighting with the water. What would happen if we just laid back? We took a deep breath in, closed our eyes, and looked at the thing that brought us to this space and time. What has just happened? For some women, there's been a career shift, either by choice, and then they're wondering why they even did that, or by not their choice. Maybe they've lost a position that they thought was really, really good for them, or a relationship. Sometimes it's the relationship shifts. Maybe we've not had children, now we have children. Maybe our children have left the nest, or maybe we found that person that we really believe is our soulmate, but then we're struggling with where do we fit in? Or maybe there's a move or a shift or a health crisis that happens. All of those things can cause us to become disoriented and not know which way is up and which way is down.
Yeah, that just made me think of I used to do scuba diving when I was at university, and you used to tumble around and you'd be like not knowing where you are. So it's about coming into the balance as well, isn't it? And
It is 100%. Yeah.
yeah, and you talk about listening really when you tune in to your client, you're listening beneath the words. Can you share kind of some examples of where you kind of unlock the breakthrough?
Yeah. So I'm actually going to use an example of a couple of clients that I've had. I've had probably a handful of clients that have come to me with sort of the same, what on the surface looks like the same presenting something or other. They're struggling with what it means to be happy in their life, what brings them joy. And for all of them, the handful that come to mind, it's taking a moment to ask the question. And I usually have them close their eyes again and take a deep breath in and imagine the last time that you really felt like you were where you were supposed to be. In all five of those cases, it didn't take very long for them to figure out that space, that place, and the people they were with that brought them joy, which then turns on a light bulb for them. And they're like, oh, that. And they remember that feeling of connection to what I call their true essence, themselves, what's down below the surface that I think we all at some point in time in our life forget who we are for a moment.
It's easy to do, isn't it, when there's so much going on in busy lives and you forget who you truly are, and you need to take that time and space to
Yeah.
tune in. And so many women feel that they've really got to earn their voice. And for you particularly, what helped you to, reclaim your voice, and how does your process really help others to do the same?
Yeah. So when I, for myself, found that spinning out of control sort of feeling and which way was up and which way was down, it was in fact when I started to have my children. I had worked and had a good career prior to having those kids, but I had always made that decision that I wanted to be present for my kids. So I stepped back from my career. No regrets. I stepped back from my career. And I found that I truly forgot about who I was. And it was all on these little beings that I'd had. I had three sons right in a row, 2 years apart. I was in my 30s. And I wasn't really sure who I was. And there was a moment in time that I remember when all three of them were down for a nap, which was rare at the time. But there was that moment in time that they were all three down for a nap, and the house was quiet. It's very still, it's very quiet. And I remember taking a deep breath, probably the deepest breath I had taken in a long time. And it was like this stirring inside of me. I need to find a story to tell. And I stopped and I went, what? What does this mean? Well, prior to that, I had been on stage as a professional actor. And I had given that up when I got married. And then clearly I wasn't doing it while I was having my children. But that stirring came up. You need to find a story to share, to tell. So I began exploring the world of storytelling. Could I do this on my own? And I found myself back on stage again. And I wasn't making money, and that was fine. It was the idea of being able to step out onto that platform that I felt so comfortable in that I reheard my inner voice. Maybe it was spirit, maybe it was the divine, maybe it was the universe calling me. You need to do more of this. This is who you are. Several years later, maybe about 20 years later, I still wasn't tuned into that little voice that had, in essence, around the age of 39, had said, this is what you should be doing. I didn't do it. It was in my mid 50s, and I was in New York. My husband was there for a conference. We were there for some vacation time as well. And I was walking around the streets of New York and found myself needing to take a break. And in that, sitting down on a park bench in New York City, that voice came up again. This is why you are here, to help people find their stories and share their stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so important. So people get smothered in life and they forget who they are. And quite often as well, it is people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s that really start to step into their power. And
Yeah.
it comes at the right time, and you have to trust it's the right time. And your spaces, there's no rushing, there's no forcing it, there's trusting. And sometimes it's the slowing down. So why do you think slowing down can create more clarity?
Yeah, that is such a great question. And In fact, I think I get asked that question at least once a day with people that I come across, because I have this phrase I use about finding the still point. We all have a still point. Some of us are not quite sure where it is, but we all have it. And what I have discovered for myself and some of the people that I've worked with is that if we take a moment to find that still point inside of us and be open and curious about what comes up, not attached to it, not cling to it, not try and have it become something other than what it is, but to just listen. Our own inner wisdom shows up. And in that inner wisdom, if we leave it be for just a bit, other things will percolate up that will be things that we perhaps haven't even thought about. There's a person that I recently began working with that really thought that their path in life was to start a company that helped other companies figure out what their marketing approach was. And so we took some time to slow down, not rush. In fact, there were long periods of silence in our time together, which was very uncomfortable for this person to begin with. But as the weeks progressed and that slowing down happened, the realization came up for this person that it wasn't the marketing that they really wanted to help with. It was to help them look at what it was that they wanted to do and think of a more creative way that they could do it than the box. This particular person I met with yesterday, and the evolution that's happened in the last couple of years is she is now, what she's calling herself is the creative strategist for the business that you really want to have. And there may be some marketing in it, but that's not really what she's doing. She is turning on the light bulb of creativity and the storytelling that goes with what it is that this
Yeah, so
business. Yeah.
sounds like she's really going with her passion and things,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
transition at the moment. And now we're in February and we've just gone into the year of the fire horse. So we've left behind the shedding of the snake and everything. And there's been that time around winter, particularly, here in England, it's been very dark and gloomy, and looking forward towards spring. And for somebody in that quiet season, just, kind of a bit of burnout transition time, what are the first gentle steps that people can be invited to take?
Yeah. So I am a big fan of writing things down on paper that maybe you will never, ever look at again. And that's fine. It's the getting out of the head, the things that are popping up. I remember, around the birth of my second son, where I was doing a lot of what I call brain dumping. I was dumping the stuff that was coming up, because what I knew is that if I could get that out, I could figure out the path to putting myself back together, to healing if there was something that needed to be healed. All of these, and times of grief. I think I shared with you recently that I had a season where I lost a lot of people in a row. And if I had not been in that ability to get it out of me, to write it down, and some of it I went back and read, but some of it I didn't, I would have been caught in this wall and brain fog of grief and not dealing with it. Yeah.
It's so useful to write it down. I'm actually doing a grief workshop on Mother's Day for people who've lost their mothers, and part of it is the journaling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's also an opportunity to write things down that you maybe never got to say, and you can write it down and trust that that message has reached them
Yeah.
beyond. Yeah. So yeah,
Yes.
it's about
Yeah.
releasing it as well and transitioning. And part of the things you mention on your website, you're talking about you've got the voice, the story, and the belonging.
Mm-hmm.
Three companions, they really come alive in your work. And where can women experience them with you?
So I have a couple of things coming up actually. So I have begun this monthly introductory workshop. It's about a half a day workshop, 3 hours or so, on finding your still point, because I still believe that that is the starting point. It's slowing down just enough to acknowledge ourselves. And then, after we've found our still point, because maybe there's some people that are listening, Lorraine, that know where their still point is, but they're still struggling with where, who, when, why, who am I? I am renaming something that I've done for years called centered and focus. If we can center and focus after we found our still point, we can empower ourselves to, first of all, start to share our story, which is that voice. Once we share the story, what naturally happens, and people don't believe this because in the vulnerability of sharing our story, we're afraid that we're not going to have a space to belong. But really, what happens is we magnetize the beings that are supposed to be with us. And we all of a sudden find ourselves in the midst of a relationship, a community, a work environment where we truly belong. I direct an awful lot of theater, community theater, and I do it from the standpoint that everybody that shows up, that auditions for this show, is either going to be a part of this community or not. And I curate that community, the final cast, I curate them into this new group. And for years after I've directed a show, those people remain connected. So there's something about finding our voice, sharing our story from a very authentic, sometimes vulnerable space. We create the spaces that we belong into.
We certainly do. And you resonate with people that are on the same vibration as you. I always find it. And when you change and you might grow as a person, people just naturally drift away if they're not of the same wavelength anymore.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to see, how dynamics of groups they change over time.
Yeah.
People come and go. And I was talking to a friend of mine the other day saying certain people that they've drifted apart because they've got different interests now, and she's become more spiritual, and the friends that still want to go out boozing, they're not really on her wavelength anymore, and things just naturally take a different route, don't they?
Yeah. And there's something interesting about that, Lorraine. I think we as people, as we grow and evolve in who we are, the things that we used to enjoy or we really loved, all of a sudden they start to fall away as well. And we try and do it again and it doesn't fit.
No.
Yeah.
It's just having the courage to change. And talking about having courage, what myths about courage do you want to kind of retire and let go of? And what does
Yeah.
steady, trustworthy courage look like in real everyday life?
Yeah. So, it's interesting. I use courageous as a part of the title of my memoir that will come out later this year. And when someone I was chatting with said they really thought the title of my book should be Courageous, I was afraid of that title. Because when I think of courage, I think of the warrior that goes out into the world with all of their weapons ready to fight the battle. And I went, but that's not really what I was doing. So that image about courage was one I had to retire. And instead, what I evolved that word to mean is the ability to step into who I was, to step into the person I was becoming, and to not be apologetic about it. And the really most difficult part of this for me, and this would have been now 10 years ago as I began to do that writing, the most difficult part of that was to not care what someone else thought. And that was a very hard, that was probably the most hard part of defining that word courage. And then eventually naming my book Courageous was owning that I am courageous. There are many things that have occurred and happened in my lifetime. And I have learned not to run away and hide in a hole because of these things that have happened, but to own who I am, to honor that, and to not care what anybody else thinks.
I love that. I love the idea of when you let go of other people's judgments, if they are judging you, it says more about them than it does about you anyway. And it's like,
Yeah.
who's taught you to be so judgmental? It comes probably something in their own childhood where they've been judged and they've learned to be like that. And it really gives other people courage. If people see you standing up and speaking your truth, then they think, oh, what if I did that? And you encourage, create a ripple effect of people being courageous, ready to go beyond their comfort zone and take a leap of faith. And it's, I don't know if you've ever seen that leap of faith video with Will Smith in jumping out
I
there.
have. In fact, I've used it in a couple of my workshops. And it's interesting because as I was thinking about this year, as I'm going into this year, and the image that presented itself for me somewhere around the 31st of the year was to create a tsunami of courageous women that are willing to step out into who they are meant to be and to live the life that they really want to live.
Excellent. So you're bringing all that courage for all your clients, helping people to level up. So, and when a client leaves a session with you, what feel in their body that tells them they're kind of back in relationship with themselves? Because it's really kind of very deep, isn't it?
It is. It is. It's almost like they've put on, and these are words that a client, more than one client, have said to me. It's almost like I put on a new pair of glasses and the world looks different. And I challenged that when it was first. Is it like rose-colored glasses? What do you mean by this? And it's the clarity. They have clarity about the spaces and places that they're supposed to be in, and clarity about when it's important to stand up and speak out, and when it's important to step back and not say anything, which can be almost more powerful than saying something.
Yeah, definitely. And particularly as well, because listening is a real skill that often gets overlooked when you stand back and don't say anything and just observe.
Yeah.
Power in that. And so my next question is for the woman watching who's, she's very capable, very helpful, but she's hiding in plain sight. What would you say to her right now?
Recognize that you're hiding, acknowledge it. And I have had women and men, there's a few men that I've worked with that I've had them do this too, and to actually say that out loud. I have been hiding myself, and why? Now, some can't verbalize it. So, this we go back to the journaling, and then eventually we get to where we can speak it out loud. But I think the minute that you say it out to the universe, even if it's in a room all by yourself, you begin to release the reasons why you were hiding. There was a time in my life I hid because I didn't want to get told I was wrong, or I didn't want to get told that I was not good enough. And again, you've already mentioned where other people are judging, and that says more about them. Well, these are the things that we're telling ourselves. We're judging ourselves, and we have to learn that we are good enough. We have to open the door of the other side of that. And in order to open the door of the other side of that, I believe we have to verbalize it. One of my most favorite quotes from Shakespeare is, "All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players, each knowing their own entrance and exit." And it's that part right there, having the ability to say out loud what your entrance or exit is, but you have to be the one to do it. Someone else can't do it for you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Where can people connect with you? Are you kind of worldwide?
Yes, I actually am. And we can go to my website, which is my name, cindythomsen.net. I also have a podcast on YouTube. And it's at Cyndi Thomsen, The Creative Connection. And it's about connecting to the creative part of ourselves. And it is actually going through an evolution right now. And because I believe the world is a stage, I'm also on Substack. So it's Theater Cat 5 on Substack. And you can find just about everything that I have that's going on in one of those locations, or 2 or 3 of those locations. So, yeah.
Excellent. And any final words for the viewers before we go?
Well, it always starts with the ability to be open to acknowledging, to expressing ourselves, even if it's just to ourselves. The minute we start to do that, the courage level rises and the fearlessness rises. And then we're able to step into, I think, what we are most passionate about and what we are drawn to by doing those things.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much. It's been lovely chatting with you again, and I'll pop
Yes.
the links below.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Lorraine.
Thanks a lot. I'll catch up with you again soon. Thanks. Bye bye.
Yes.